The broadcast of the Minneapolis Heritage Preservation Commission will now begin. Go ahead, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome to this live broadcast of our virtual meeting of the May 5th, 2020 regular meeting of the Minneapolis Heritage Preservation Commission. This meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota statutes section 13D.021 due to the declared local health pandemic. For the record, my name is Madeline Sundberg and I serve as chair of the Minneapolis Heritage Preservation Commission. I will now call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll so we may verify the presence of a quorum.
Bjornberg.
Present.
Fritz.
Present.
Howard.
Present.
Kling.
Present.
Johnson.
Present.
Mack.
Present.
Sandbolt.
Present.
Stady.
Here.
Sundberg.
Present.
Vanderenk.
Here.
That's 10 members. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have quorum. With that, we will proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's legislative information management system, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. So our first order of business is to adopt the agenda for this meeting. We will work from those agendas that are available online. So I'll go through the agenda and sort out which items will be continued to a future meeting, what items will be discussed, and what items will be put on the consent agenda as to be approved as recommended by staff without further discussion. So item number 4, which is 800 Washington Avenue North, Ward 3, will be on the consent agenda unless someone wants to speak in opposition to or modify the staff recommendations. Are there any members of the commission who would like to speak on item 4? Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak in opposition to staff recommendations for item 4? Okay, seeing none, I will put that on the consent agenda. Item number 5 is 2309 Plymouth Avenue, Ward 5, a demolition of historic resource. This item will be discussed. Item number 6 is the Joyce Memorial Methodist Church landmark designation, which is 1219 West 31st Street, Ward 10. That item will be discussed. And item number 7 is the National Register of Historic Places nomination for Sound 80 Studios at 2709 East 25th Street, Ward 2, and that item will be discussed. So the proposed agenda, the consent agenda, will be item number 4, 800 Washington Avenue North. Again, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to staff recommendations for item number 4? Consent agenda. Item number 5 is 23. We will approve that consent agenda item in one motion at the start of the meeting. Items number 5, which is 2309 Plymouth Avenue. Items number 6, 1219 West 31st Street. We'll have staff presentation, public comment, and the commission discussion and action. And then item number 7, 2709 East 25th Street. We'll have a staff presentation and commission discussion. Commissioners, may I have a motion to approve the proposed agenda?
Does Mac so move?
Thank you, Commissioner Mack. Is there a second?
Fritz, second.
Thank you, Commissioner Fritz. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion.
Bjornberg,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
Kling,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Sandbolt,
Aye.
Stady,
Aye.
Sundberg,
Aye.
Vandereyck.
Aye.
Thank you. That is 10 yay.
Thank you. The agenda is approved. Our next order of business will be to approve the minutes from our April 21st, 2020 meeting. May I have a motion to approve those minutes?
This is Howard. I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Howard. Is there a second?
Johnson seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. With that, I will ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion.
Bjornberg,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
Kling,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Sandbolt,
Aye.
Stady,
Aye.
Sundberg,
Aye.
Vandereyck.
Aye.
That's 10 yay.
Thank you. The minutes are approved. Before I open the hearing to public comments, let me summarize the process for conducting the public hearing in this virtual format. The process for the public hearing will be as follows. First, we will act on the consent agenda that we just set. Once the consent agenda item is approved, the commission is done with that item, and the applicant may contact the planning staff tomorrow about next steps. After that, we will take each remaining item in order. First, planning staff will present its report, and the commissioners may ask questions of staff. Then we will hear from the applicant, and the commissioners may ask questions of the applicant. After that, I will open the public hearing, and we will invite public comment. We'll be taking the speakers in the order they pre-registered. The speakers will be limited to 2 minutes. We ask that after your name is called, you state your name and address for the record, and then proceed with your comments. After we have completed the list of the pre-registered speakers, we will see if there are any other speakers in the queue who have called in. And in order to activate your microphone, just a reminder to press *6 on the phone. So we're just asking everybody to keep their comments to the specific application that is here before us. And after the public comments are complete, I will close the hearing. The commissioners will deliberate and act on the applications before us. So I will now open the public hearing on the consent agenda items, which is item number 4, 800 Washington Avenue North, Ward 3. Again, commissioners, is there any opposition to staff recommendations on this item? Are there any members of the public who wish to speak in opposition on item number 4? Seeing none, I will now close the public hearing on the consent agenda items. May I have a motion to approve staff findings and recommendations for these items?
Commissioner Vandereyck, so moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Vandereyck. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Mac.
Thank you, Commissioner Mack. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll on the motion.
Bjornberg,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
Kling,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Sandbolt,
Aye.
Stady,
Aye.
Vandereyck,
Aye.
Sundberg.
Aye.
That's 10 yay.
Okay, motion passes. Item number 4, 800 Washington Avenue North, Ward 3 is approved as recommended by staff on the agenda. The applicant for that item may contact planning staff tomorrow about next steps. Our first item for discussion is item number 5, 309 Plymouth Avenue, Ward 5. The staff presentation is presented by Sheila Beamer.
Good afternoon. My name is Sheila Beamer, and I'm a senior city planner for the Historic Preservation Team in CPED. I will be presenting the staff report for the demolition of historic resource application for 2309 Plymouth Avenue in Ward 5, Plan 10588. And can I get the next slide, please?
Hello?
The subject property is a former church initially identified in a 2002 Historic Resources Survey of North Minneapolis. It was also identified as a contributing resource in the Homewood Historic Designation Study in January. CPED staff completed a historic review letter for the property and determined that it may be a historic resource as an individual landmark. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing to demolish the former church and construct a 4-story, 36-unit apartment building with 50% AMI, area median income affordability. The owner also purchased the vacant lot across the alley to the west and is proposing a 4-story, 27-unit building. 13 of the units will be set aside for housing support through Hennepin County for people experiencing chronic homelessness. Next slide, please. Constructed in 1910 as the Homewood Presbyterian Church, this was the first non-residential building constructed in a newly platted neighborhood called Homewood. In 1948, the Knesset Israel congregation moved into the former Presbyterian Church, and the building became a synagogue. Jewish and African residents of Minneapolis moved to the north side, where the lack of racially restrictive covenants allowed them to participate in the American dream. However, relationships between the two cultures changed after World War II, as housing options and job opportunities became more readily available for Jewish citizens than for African Americans. Next slide, please. By the 1960s, North Minneapolis showed signs of civil unrest in response to the racism evident in Minneapolis and throughout the U.S., culminating in 2 major events. The first, in 1966, involved looting and arson on Plymouth Avenue North, in a stretch of businesses which are no longer extant. The second event began on the evening of July 19th, 1967, when a group of young African Americans began to vandalize shops and businesses along Plymouth Avenue. For 3 days, the violence continued and the National Guard was deployed before the unrest ended on July 22nd. There were fires, shootings, injuries, arrests, and damages totaling $4.2 million, but no fatalities. In response to this event, business owners and government officials formed the Urban Coalition, a nonprofit tasked with helping minority communities in policy and advocacy. These photos are courtesy of the Star Tribune. Throughout these events, the Knesset Israel congregation continued to assemble at 2309 Plymouth Avenue North, just steps away from the activity. Knesset Israel sold the building to the New Salem Baptist Church in 1972. Like Knesset Israel's congregation, New Salem's congregation reflected the changing demographic of the surrounding neighborhood. New Salem Missionary Baptist Church served the community from its Plymouth Avenue North location until moving out of the neighborhood in 2006. This potential landmark may have significance under 2 local criteria, 1 and 3. Next slide, please. Since the late 1960s, from the eastern boundary of the Willard Hay neighborhood to Queen Avenue North, the shops, businesses, and homes that once lined Plymouth Avenue North have been cleared and replaced with warehouses, housing complexes, or nothing at all, erasing all built evidence of not only the vibrant mixed culture neighborhood, but the physical markers that have been of important event in civil rights relations in the city. The former church at 2309 Plymouth Avenue North may be one of the last remaining tangible reminders of this era along Plymouth Avenue North. survivor reflective of the perseverance of the community right up to the present day. As such, the building at 2309 Plymouth Avenue North is eligible under Criterion 1 for its association with significant events. Next slide, please. 2309 Plymouth Avenue North is the oldest extant non-residential building on Plymouth Avenue North in both the Willard Hay and Near North neighborhoods. Constructed in 1910 as a Presbyterian church with the Homewood development, the church was converted into a synagogue in 1948 following settlement by the Jewish population in the neighborhood. By the early 1960s, the demographics of the neighborhood were changing as more African American citizens moved into the area. The events of 1966 and 1967 along Plymouth Avenue North left a lasting mark on the neighborhood. The Knesset Israel congregation moved out of their synagogue and sold the property to New Salem Missionary Baptist Church in 1972. New Salem remained in the building until 2006. The former church has survived decades of changing congregation, urban renewal, and important events that destroyed many of the buildings along Plymouth Avenue North. The neighborhood has changed, but the former church, integral to the communities that live there, remained. Therefore, the building is eligible under Criterion 3 for its association with distinctive elements of neighborhood identity. Next slide, please. The building has been vacant for more than 5 years and is in fair to poor condition and is in need of rehabilitation, but retains good historic integrity in all 7 aspects. In response to the findings for demolition, the applicant states the building requires substantial renovation due to deterioration and long deferred maintenance to be brought up to current codes, but is not structurally unsafe or dangerous at this time. There are no reasonable alternatives to demolition, and the significance for the property is low and its integrity is impaired. The existing building requires extensive renovation costs in order to continue as a church, and the cost to renovate for residential use exceeds the rental revenue it can generate, and that the needed renovation work for the church repairs or new residential use far exceeds the economic value and usefulness of the property. Cost estimates are $1,932,645 for rehabilitation of the building into 6 residential units, and cost estimates for new construction is $10,958,976 for 63 units. Next slide, please. CPED recommends that the Heritage Preservation Commission deny the demolition of historic resource application, establish interim protection, and direct the planning director to prepare or cause to be prepared a designation study of the former church located at 2309 Plymouth Avenue North. This concludes my staff report. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you for your report. It looks like Commissioner Vander Eyck is recusing herself, just for the record. And there was a question that I'm not sure if you can answer, Sheila, but do you know if Amy Lucas was consulting on this application?
Amy Lucas was included in all of the emails that the applicant sent to me. However, I did not respond directly back to her because I was unclear on the relationship between the applicant and Ms. Lucas.
Then I think Commissioner Kling would also like to recuse himself on this application. Are there any questions for staff?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, this is Veronica Palacios. I'm a neighbor close to the church, to the property 20.
Oh, I'm sorry. We haven't opened the public hearing yet. The staff presents and then I'll open the public hearing for you.
Okay.
If you just hold for like just a moment.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. I know it's a little confusing.
All right.
It's just the formal part. I don't see any questions for staff coming into the chat. So I will now open the public hearing for the item, but I would like to ask the applicant to speak first so we can hear what they have to say first before the rest of the public speaks. Is the applicant
Hi,
here? Yes.
yep, can you hear me? James Archer?
Yes.
Oh, okay. James Archer, resident 1015 Queen Avenue North. I'm the developer. I'm a local developer. I live right down the street. Person of color who lives right in the community and has went by this property for the 12 years that I've been here. It's been an eyesore, to say the least, seeing how all the deferred maintenance and whatnot. But I did have one question. Did you get the 4-page document that I sent in? I gave to Sheila. I didn't get a response. That if you guys received it, was that received by the commissioners?
We received quite a few public comments. Yes, I'm seeing the answer in the chat. Yes, it was one of the public comments we received.
It shouldn't have, was it a public comment? It was from the applicant. It was a 4-page, it was 5/5/2020, 2309 support to demolish. I just want to make sure that's it provides a good amount of information.
Yeah, staff is telling me that it is on the public record. It was submitted.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, just some of the talking points on here. Yeah, I know staff noted that the north boundary is nearly 100% intact. This isn't the case. From that note, there are 2 wrought iron Stars of David, which are gone. Pretty basic steel door on the front. So I mean, it's been compromised a decent amount. Just looking at the pictures, the condition, and the opportunity to provide affordable housing to keep people in the community, I think it's a unique, special opportunity. And given the overall condition of the building, I think it would be the best use of it. And this is going into, I ran this by NRRC, the neighborhood group, and I know that they were vigorously opposed to designation a few years ago, and were able to be successful. And then, I came up with this plan, and there's just been, I've been told directly and indirectly it's going to be stopped and shut down. So I don't know if this is the avenue that they're trying to do that or not, but that is something to keep in mind as you make a decision on this. The reasons were, not wanting to have, affordable housing, housing for homelessness, and the perceived crime that comes with it, too much density, lack of parking. So those were the reasons for the lack of support and not liking the project. The other piece I would like to add is that staff actually never viewed the interior of the building to assess, the condition inside. So, I think there's some representations in here about the condition and viability of it. So that's something as well to keep in mind. But I wanted to leave a minute or two for my consultant, Amy, to speak. I know she is on the line as well.
Okay.
Amy?
Hi, this is Amy Lucas with Landscape Research, and there was a question about work with James Archer. I did actually walk through the building with Mr. Archer and did look at the documentation that he had. We discussed the building quite a bit and the designation criteria. I did not feel that this building actually warranted the 50-page thesis statement documentation and research. But now that we're here and we have a negative staff recommendation, I guess I'll talk a little bit more than I wanted to. First, I don't know if anyone in the Preservation Commission knows that the HPC actually paid for Gareth Peterson to complete a context study in 1997 called Jewish Settlement in Minneapolis, 1860s to 1972. It's not mentioned anywhere, but I just want folks to know that when that was completed in 1997, there were recommendations for buildings to be designated at that time. Micro Kodesh, built in 1926, was designated. Sharei Tzedek was built in 1936, was also designated. Those two buildings were synagogues in North Minneapolis, designated for their architectural significance. The second thing the report doesn't notice, the staff report, is in 2007 when Mead and Hunt reviewed this property, they actually determined it ineligible for local designation. That wasn't mentioned in the staff report. And I'm not going to get into the Homewood Historic District from 2017 denomination, other than I think most of you know that when you have a district, I think that there can be a lower integrity for properties. But when you're looking at a building for individual basis, there is a higher standard for integrity and significance. So it's true, Homewood was built for a Presbyterian congregation in 1910, and then went to a Jewish congregation in 1948, and then went into the Missionary Baptist Church in 1971. Most churches, it's becoming more and more common in Minneapolis, have switched congregations. The two criteria that staff listed for designation is, one, the building, I guess, is related to civil unrest. I'm guessing on the criteria and how this building is actually related to that unrest. It's not clear to me how this building actually even relates. It was not built by those two latter congregations. It hasn't been occupied in 18 years. And in general, so civil unrest, I'm just going to throw out the typical graduate discussion. Died in a car wreck in front of my house. Is my house worthy of being designated? That's how random criteria number one is being used in this discussion and staff report. Criteria number 3 says that the building is old, that it's the oldest survivor, not a commercial survivor. There was another building built in 1908 or 10, but on Plymouth Avenue. Because something's old doesn't mean that that gives it its significance. I don't think the commission wants to start designating the oldest building on Lyndale Avenue or Hennepin Avenue. That's not a criteria just because it happens to be a survivor if it doesn't have the integrity or meet some historic steps. The staff said that this building is representative of the community. Every building and house in Minneapolis must be, I'm sure, representative of the community and the changes to that community. That's not a criteria for designation. I felt that the criteria were misused. I walked through this building. It is not heated, has not been heated in, like I said, almost 20 years. The building foundation was not evaluated for structural strength, but the basement is very wet. I would not put congregations in this building again. They are sitting on very few wood posts and multiple alterations in the basement to this building. I did not suggest the client, James Arthur, actually did go through on his own and look at rehabbing costs. They could fit 6 units in this building. And you saw the price. That's more than $300,000 per unit in this building for residential use. There has not been a community group or an organization or a church that has wanted this building since 2002. I'm available for questions, and those are just my initial comments upon reading the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Are there members of the commission who have questions for the applicant?
Yes.
I'm directing, are there any questions from commissioners?
Yes, this is Linda Mack. I wonder if Amy could go over the Mead and Hunt study again. If you could repeat that a little bit. There were a couple of elements there, and then I'd like to see if Sheila could respond to that.
So, can you still hear me? Commissioner Mack, I don't know if you can hear me still.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Can.
So from my basic understanding, the Mead and Hunt study was from 2007, I believe. Does that sound right? Or was it 2000? Let's see, I have to go back to my own. I actually realized under this that they had done 106 had done a 2011 survey. I did not see that 2011 survey. Did the 106 group come up saying that the building should be designated? I have to ask that one. Or that it was eligible for designation? I only knew about the Mead and Hunt survey form.
And what precisely did they say in the 2007 Mead and Hunt survey?
They did not recommend the building for individual designation. They did not say it was eligible for individual designation.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions for Amy from commissioners? I don't see any. So I am going to open up the public hearing to the rest of the public. If anyone is wishing to speak for or against this application, again, we'll take the speakers in the order that they registered and ask each speaker to provide their name and address before they make their comments, and then press *6 on your phone to activate your microphone so that we can hear you. And I think if the clerk could call the first speaker in the queue, that would be great.
Can we start with a neighbor, Veronica, who came here in person, who's on the phone? Veronica, if you want to make your comment now.
Yes.
Veronica, if you could just please state your address for the record and then go ahead with your comment, please. Thank you.
Okay. I'm on close at 1251 Queen Avenue North. I'm a neighbor for the church for the property 23 for demolition 2309.
Yes, thank you. Go ahead, please,
Yes.
with your comment.
Yeah. So my English is not good. So, but I don't like that to the property. Do it for some apartments. My neighbor is very quiet, very nice. So if you know when more people more people, it's a family homes around there. I don't like to do it to the building apartments. If it's possible, if somebody buy the property just for one home, it's okay. Or maybe I buy the property for making a home. Just one home is okay. So the neighbor is only family homes, not for apartment building.
Okay, thank you for making your comment. It's on the record.
The next speaker we have registered is Anna Schmiel. Anna, if you want to unmute your phone and make your comment, state your name and address for the record.
Can you press *6 so we can hear you?
Now she muted.
Oh.
Hi, sorry, can everyone hear me?
Yes,
hello?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, I do not know what happened. Yes, my name is Anna Schmiel, and my personal address is 732 Polk Street Northeast, but I work at the Northside Economic Opportunity Network at 1007 West Broadway Avenue North. And so I'm just speaking on behalf of my organization, NEON, and we strongly support the designation of 2309 Plymouth Avenue as a historic landmark. We actually believe that another usage that the community has definitely expressed interest in is having more of an entrepreneurial center. And we think that this would be a perfect place for that, specifically someplace for a maker's space for people. You know, it's far away from like a major commercial zone, so that could be a really good usage for it. And so we think that it would be a great opportunity to celebrate and preserve the history of the North Side by really allowing there to be a place that has a lot of history now brought into the present for present usage for the community's benefit. So that is what we are supporting.
Thank you for your comments. Can I have the next speaker?
There are no more speakers in the queue for this item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other speakers, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, let's discuss. Are there any concerns or comments on the proposed application?
This is Linda again. I guess I'd like to explore with Sheila if her understanding of the Mead and Hunt study is the same as Amy's. We seem to, well, the staff report says the property was identified in a 2002 study, and so I guess I'm sorry. I am wondering if she could respond to the conclusion that Amy has, that the 2007 study did not identify it, I gather.
Sheila or Andrea, is that something that can be addressed at this time? Andrea Burke to speak.
I'll speak to this one at the moment. I confess I don't have the exact specifics. I'm not aware of a 2007 Mead and Hunt study. I am aware of a 2002 Mead and Hunt survey that included this area and did look at the Homewood, larger Homewood district. In terms of identify, I don't have the specifics other than that. I think Sheila can look it up, but in that it was included in the survey area. Was it probably specifically called out as an individual landmark in the 2002 study? No, I don't think so. But the research that Sheila had done, Ms. Femmer had done in the 2020 January letter was more expanding upon this property as an individual landmark, in that it, in addition to its relationship to Homewood, but more focusing on its potential landmark significance under criterion 1 and 3. I hope that answers your question, but I will try to look up more if you have more. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda, does that answer your question?
For now, thanks. Yep.
Okay. Are there other questions or comments from commissioners? If not, does somebody want to make a motion?
Gosh, I think we should have some discussion. I feel like I'm the only one here. Sorry. Well, I drove by this building, and it is a bit troubling because so much of the I commend the staff report, and it is certainly one of the few older buildings in this neighborhood, but it's also a bit troubling when you think about studying its integrity and the integrity of location has just disappeared. It's just out there, and it doesn't feel like it's part of the neighborhood anymore. And it's obviously been sitting vacant for some time. I had to really think about Mr. Roberts' letter. You know, it's been there. When something is going to be demolished, there's always like a rush to say, oh, it could be a wonderful whatever, but there's been no impetus to make that happen. I know that's actually not our job. We just need to look at whether it really meets the criteria for historic designation or not. I'm sorry, I wandered off into another field here, another realm. It does not seem like a strong candidate to me for individual designation. It might have been important as part of the Homewood designation study, but that, you know, is on hold. So I'd really like to hear what others are thinking about it.
Thank you, Commissioner Mack. It looks like Commissioner Howard would like to speak.
I'm really struggling with this one too. I appreciate Commissioner Mack's comments, and I usually agree with Ms. Lucas, so I understand her gut feeling, and so I'm feeling that as well. But I don't feel like I have enough information to say whether or not this property could be individually designated. There just isn't enough information in this packet to be able to make that case. Some of that information would come out in a designation study, so I'm struggling with this one.
Thank you, Commissioner Howard. Commissioner Stady would like to speak.
Thank you. Yes, Homewood is such a special place. It has such a great fabric, as all the buildings contribute to being, you know, a potential historic district. But I really don't think this single building merits individual designation. And we did get strong input from the neighborhood that they did not want their neighborhood designated. So I'm inclined to approve the demolition of this building.
Thank you, Commissioner Stady. I think I understand where everybody seems to be coming from with how this is a little like a gray area. I guess I would like to point out that this is just us directing the planning director to prepare a designation study, and so I understand that there might not be as much information as we would really like to see. But I guess in my mind, that's what this step is for, is to bring out that information. So I guess personally, I agree with the staff's findings at this point. But I certainly see why there are kind of two sides to this. Are there other commissioners who would like to speak on this item? No one? I guess, would somebody like to make a motion then?
This is Howard. I can make a motion just to maybe get the rest of the commissioners into the conversation. I would move to deny the demolition of the historic resource application, establish interim protection, and direct the planning director to prepare or cause to be prepared a designation study of the church located at 2309 Plymouth Avenue North.
Thank you, Commissioner Howard. Is there a second?
Bjornberg seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Bjornberg. Any additional discussion? Well, seeing none, would the clerk call the roll on that motion?
Bjornberg.
Aye.
Fritz.
Nay.
Howard.
Aye.
Kling has recused himself. Johnson.
Aye.
Mack.
Oh, aye.
Sandbolt.
Aye.
Stady.
Nay.
Van Dyke has recused herself. And then Sundberg.
Aye.
So that's 6 yay, 2 nay.
Thank you. The motion passes. That concludes our first item on the agenda. The second item is item number 6, which is the Joyce Memorial Methodist Church landmark designation at 1219 West 31st Street, Ward 10. The staff report will be presented by Robert Sklecki.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Rob Sklecki. I'm a city planner in the Historic Preservation section of CPED. Today I'm presenting to you the landmark designation for Joyce Memorial Methodist Church located at 1219 West 31st Street in the South Uptown neighborhood. Slide, please. In 2019, Brian Farrell, the property owner of the church, submitted a nomination for Joyce Memorial Methodist Church for consideration for a local historic landmark. On August 13th, 2019, CPED staff recommended to the HPC that the potential landmark may exhibit 2 of the local designation criteria found in Heritage Preservation Ordinance. The HPC adopted the staff findings and placed Joyce Memorial Methodist Church under interim protection and called for a designation study to be conducted. A designation study was prepared by historical consultants New History in the winter of 2019 to 2020, and that concluded that the property was eligible for local designation under criterion 4 and 6. The study was submitted for review and comment to both the State Historic Preservation Office and the Minneapolis City Planning Commission. Joyce Memorial Methodist meets the following designation criteria. Could you go back to the slide, please? Thank you. Criteria number 4, the property embodies the distinctive characteristics of an architectural or engineering type or style or method of construction. The church embodies the distinctive characteristics of the California Mission Revival style. It features a number of the defining elements of the style, which include stucco cladding, deep arched windows and doors, a bell tower, quatrefoil windows, hipped clay tile roofs, an arcaded entry porch, and elaborate curved and shaped parapets. There's not currently a California Mission Revival style building that is locally designated in Minneapolis, and the building is one of 2 California Mission style churches in Minneapolis, and of the 2, it retains integrity. The building also meets criteria number 6. The property exemplifies the works of master builders, engineers, designers, artists, craftsmen, or architects. The Joyce Memorial Methodist Church exemplifies the work of master architects Downs and Eads, who were known for their period revival style buildings and their commercial, civic, religious structures. Between 1905 and 1928, Downs and Eads were prolific architects in the city and designed buildings of many different styles. In a letter sent to staff dated April 1st, 2020, the State Historic Preservation Office concurred with this and the property designation, and they stated that Joyce Memorial Methodist Church is architecturally significant at the local level as a rare example of the Mission Revival style in Minneapolis, and that is also significant for its association with the work of master architects Harry Downs and Harold Eads, who practiced together and were known for designing a variety of civic, commercial, and religious architecture in Minneapolis. The designation study was presented to the City Planning Commission at the April 27th, 2020 meeting, and they voted to approve the designation of the property. Slide, please. The following policies of Minneapolis 2040 would apply to the designation of Joyce Memorial Methodist Church. Policy 92, identify and evaluate historic resources. The California Mission Revival style is not currently represented in the body of Minneapolis's locally designated historic resources. The property has been identified as the city's best example of a church that retains and conveys the significance of this particular style. Policy 60, intrinsic value of properties. Joyce Memorial is the only intact California Mission Revival style church in the city, and designation would allow for the protection, increased awareness, appreciation, intrinsic and potential economic value of this unique piece of the city's architectural history. And also policy 93, which is stewarding historic properties. Local designation would encourage the retention and adaptive reuse of a significant community resource and ensure change, guided change to the property under the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. Slide, please. Landmark designation would promote the history of Joyce Memorial Methodist relayed through its unique California Mission Revival style architecture and as an emblematic example of master architects Downs and Eads, who were known for creating significant revival designs at the time. The designation would preserve a rare piece of the city's architectural history in an area of the city that experiences significant pressures from development. Historic designation of the property would maintain the historic footprint, massing community prominence of Joyce Memorial Methodist Church as a neighborhood focal point at the notable intersection of West 31st Street and Fremont Avenue South. Slide, please. The Department of Community Planning and Economic Development recommends that the Heritage Preservation Commission and City Council adopt staff findings for the local designation of Joyce Memorial Methodist Church and recommend to approve the local designation of Joyce Memorial Methodist Church. I would also like to point out that in the staff report and the agenda, it was mistakenly listed that this was a district. It is in fact not a district, it's an individual landmark that is being recommended for approval here. So with that, I will take any questions on the designation if you have them. Otherwise, I look forward to your comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. Are there any questions for staff? I don't see any coming in. Thank you. I was really excited to see this one come forward. I've been looking forward to it. Is the consultant, did they want to speak? Is the applicant here?
Hi, this is Tamara Lutz from New History. Brian is not here. He asked me to attend in his place.
Okay. Well, I will open the public hearing, and if there's anything you'd like to say on the item, just please state your name and address for the record.
This is Tamara Lutz with New History. Our office address is 575 9th Street Southeast, Suite 215, in Minneapolis, zip code 55114. And I'm going to apologize right now. You're also on with my dog Brooks, and he will surely bark because I'm on the phone. I just wanted to speak on Brian's behalf. The applicant is Brian Farrell, and he acquired the church. He lives in the neighborhood, and he's just very familiar with it. And he actually pursued both the nomination of the designation of the property for designation and commissioned the designation study himself, and is just a very strong believer in the historic significance of this property and advocate for its designation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Are there any questions for the applicant? I don't see any. Is there anyone else? I know we had somebody sign up, but I'm not sure if they made it to the line or not. Did they want to speak on the item?
There is no one else in the queue for this item.
Okay. Then I will close the public hearing. And commissioners, let's discuss. Are there concerns or comments on the application? Commissioner Howard.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you very much to the applicant for bringing this forward. And as a member of this neighborhood, when you walk by, you know that this is a special building. So I'm really excited to see this getting locally designated and that designation is being put forward by the owner. It's a great building in our neighborhood, a great asset to have, and I'm looking forward to seeing the work going forward after designation. So thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Howard. Commissioner Johnson?
My question was, well, I got the answer to my question. What the current use of the church is? It's currently vacant. Is that correct?
Yes, it is currently vacant. From what staff understands, it has been vacant for a little less than a year now, but I think the property owner might be able to speak on that best. Unfortunately, they're not available, so.
Oh yeah, it looks like they left the call. Yeah, that was my understanding based off of the report, was that it was vacant as well.
It is vacant.
Okay, thank you, Tamara.
Of course.
Are there other questions from commissioners? Or perhaps somebody would like to make a motion.
Well, this is Howard again. I will make a motion. I guess since it's in my ward, it makes sense. I move to approve the local designation of Joyce Memorial Methodist Church.
Thank you, Commissioner Howard. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, that was a competition. Commissioner Sandbolt, I will give you the second. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Bjornberg.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Howard.
Aye.
Kling.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mack.
Aye.
Sambolt.
Aye.
Stady.
Aye.
Vandereyk.
Aye.
Sundberg.
Aye.
That's 10 yay.
Thank you. That motion passes. How exciting. I'm glad to see another really prominent building designated. So that concludes our public hearing items. Our first discussion item is Sound 80 Studios, which is 2709 East 25th Street, Ward 2. That's the National Register nomination. And Commissioner Howard is recusing herself. And the staff report is presented by Rob Sklecki.
Just wait for the slides to get up here. 1 second. Perfect. Thank you. I'm presenting a National Register of Historic Places nomination for CLG HPC comment. The property is Sound 80. It's located at 2709 East 25th Street. Slide, please. The property was surveyed in the 2009 Historic Resources Inventory of Seward. The consultant listed the property as potentially meeting local designation criterion 1 for its association to significant event or period. The property was highlighted in the 2018 Minneapolis Music History 1850 to 2000 context. The historians noted that Sound 80 was recognized as one of the top recording studios in the metro area at the time, and they detailed notable recordings made at the studio. The study further recognized the site's status for recording the world's first digital recording for a commercial release. As identified in the 2020 Prince 1950 to 1987 Multiple Property Documentation Form, MPDF, the property was recommended eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places under Criterion B for its association with Prince. The studio was a key location that allowed the artist to develop his production skills and recording style, and it was what would later become the starting point for the Minneapolis sound style of music. The MPDF also detailed that Sound 80 would also meet criterion consideration G for its association to Prince. Next slide, please. Located in the Seward neighborhood, Sound 80 is a one-story flat roof building located at the southeast corner of the intersection of East 25th Street and 27th Avenue South. The building has an irregular footprint and it's based in a rectangular plan with 2 projecting bays. The property is constructed of concrete block and was originally an L-shaped building that was clad in Granulux cladding. The original plan for the building was designed in collaboration by nationally renowned acoustical engineer Robert Hansen and Minneapolis architect Douglas A. Baird in the modern style. However, the plans were given to ALM Construction and Engineering, who created a simplified version of that design. Slide, please. The building was designed utilizing the latest scientific standards for acoustics, evident in the concrete block walls, sound retardant doors, and sound locks, and acoustical ceiling tile. The interior includes a lobby area, 5 offices, a copy room for staff, and 5 studio spaces. Acoustical tiles, concrete block, carpeting or wall fabric, and thick plate glass windows are just some of the interior features that showcase the studio's acoustic-based design. Slide, please. The nomination states that Sound 80 is historically significant under National Register Criteria A for performing arts music for its statewide importance and association to the Minnesota music scene. In the 1970s into the 1980s, Sound 80 was recognized among the best recording studios in the nation and the top recording location in the Twin Cities. From its completion in 1971, the property quickly drew a nationally reaching reputation for excellence in recording based in their implementation of the latest acoustical design, engineering, and use of expert professionals and the best equipment of the era. The quality of the studio drew the attention of internationally known artists. The 10-year span of the studio's operation captured recordings for, but not limited to, the following artists and releases: Bob Dylan, Blood on the Tracks, Cat Stevens, Izitzo, The Suicide Commandos, Make a Record, and of course, early creations by Prince. The property is being nominated under Criterion B for statewide significance for its association with Prince as an early writing, practice, and rehearsal and recording location for the artist who would become internationally recognized. The property is significant under Criterion B for its role as a space that allowed Prince to develop and consequently develop the Minneapolis sound. Slide, please. The building's period of significance begins in 1971 when the building opened and ends in 1981, the year the last recording was made at Sound 80, and the building closed that year. Given the documented importance of the property's significance under both Criterion A and Criterion B, the property meets the requirements to be considered for nomination under Criterion Consideration G for a property that is less than 50 years old and has achieved significance within the past 50 years. Slide, please. Sound 80 retains good integrity overall, despite later interior and exterior alterations, including the loss of its Granulux finish and a 1995 Southeast edition, which impacted the integrity of design, workmanship, and materials. There's still sufficient integrity in the interior and exterior to convey the building's significance and communicate the building's history as a modern recording studio. With that, staff recommends to the Heritage Preservation Commission that you adopt the CPED report, approve the National Register nomination of Sound 80 at 2709 East 25th Street, and direct staff to transmit a letter summarizing the report to the State Historic Preservation Office. And I'm available for questions on this as well if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Are there any questions for staff? Commissioners? I don't see any right off the bat. It sounds like the author of the National Register nomination is on the line. Did they have something to add? If they could press *6 and give their name and address for the record. maybe not.
She's still there. Kristen Schomler. Kristen Schomler, if you press *6 to unmute and begin your comment.
Well, maybe it's not working. I guess I'll start the conversation with the. Oh, are you there?
Hi, sorry, this is Kristen Schumler with Sound History. I apparently don't know how to work a phone. My address is 1386 Idaho Avenue West in Falcon Heights, Minnesota 55108. I'm just here and available if there's any questions, and just to acknowledge the owner of the building, Steve Warfield, is very supportive of having this building be designated and have preservation and protection of it into the future.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding the applicant? Or, well, the owners? Commissioners? I don't see any. If something comes up, we'll see. But if we could just start the discussion. Does anyone want to speak on this item? I know I was excited to see this item come through, and I did see mentioned that there's potential interest in designating it as a local landmark as well as on the National Register, which I think we would all be really excited to see. I know when we completed the study on the music history, we were all hoping that we might see some items come out of that. So I think this is sort of an exciting first one to see pop up. Commissioners, any thoughts? Commissioner Mack?
Thank you. I haven't really mastered this yet. Yeah, I mean, what a thorough study. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
I agree with Commissioner Mack. The study was great. What I'm about to say might be a little controversial, but I think that Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks is way better than anything Prince did. So, no, but seriously, it was a great study. Huge fan of Bob Dylan and of Prince. So I'm really glad to see this one there also.
Blasphemy, Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, don't want to start any riots up here.
Bob Dylan is from Minnesota too. We can support
Yeah,
both of them.
he doesn't want to be though.
Well, but he's always been a little like reclusive.
I would second everybody here, echo everybody's concerns here that this is a great study. Really excited about it. So thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner Van Der Eyck. Any other comments? Does anyone want to make a motion?
Commissioner Kling.
Commissioner Kling.
So move to have to adopt the CPED report, approve the National Register nomination for the Sound 80 at 2709 East 25th Street, and direct staff to transmit a letter summarizing the report to the State Historic Preservation Officer.
Thank you, Commissioner Kling. Is there a second?
Johnson seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Gartenberg.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Howard has recused herself. Kling.
Aye.
Johnson. Mack.
Aye.
Sandbolt.
Aye.
Stady.
Aye.
Van Dyke,
Aye.
Sundberg.
Aye.
That's 8 yay.
Thank you. The motion passes. Announcements. Do commissioners or staff have any announcements or commission business to discuss? Andrea Burke to speak.
Good evening again, Andrea Burke, Supervisor for Historic Preservation Team at CPED. I just wanted to give one update that we are wrapping up the modern Minneapolis in the Modern Era Context Study and Limited Test Survey. We're in the final stages of edits and revisions to that document, and once it is completed, we will present us and the consultant will present it as a discussion item with some of the findings and some of the summary of the context study and some of the survey. So I just wanted to give that to you as a heads up. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That'll be exciting to see. Any other announcements? I don't see any. So there being no other business, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Commissioner Van Dyke, so moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Van Dyke. Is there a second?
Howard seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Howard. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the meeting is adjourned. The next regular meeting of the HPC is on May 19th, 2020.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.